Hi, and welcome to Legally Insane News. I'm your host, Kyle O'Donnell. Find and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Kyle O'Donnell, and head over to legallyinsanefilms.com to listen to my other podcasts, to read my books and articles, to check out my photos from around the world, and to watch my documentary films. Again, that's legallyinsanefilms.com. Once again, social media has proven that people care more about trash like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard than political chaos, eroding currency, and the state of the nation. And that set of catastrophic topics still takes a backseat to the melodrama unfolding in the wake of the Depp versus Heard trial in Virginia, where we're seeing an overwhelming pattern emerge. And no, before you jump in and assume this about me, I am not talking about Amber's near constant reputational beatings on social media, though that is an undeniable pattern as well. I'm talking about both the women and the people in the celebrity elite class who have come out and distanced themselves from what is now being revealed as the toxic Me Too movement. In two recent New York Post articles, Ben Cassine cites the most biting of social feeds that include the likes of Meghan McCain and, once leaders in the movement saying things like, Me Too is dead, and hell of a job, ACLU. This quote is actually, it's kind of a jab at the liberal-leaning civil rights institution that helped craft the op-ed in the Washington Post that Heard actually got sued over in the first place. Both the ACLU and Amber Heard have become relatively hated sources of deflated gusto in the wake of the decision by several Virginia jurors to find Heard culpable in a case that awarded Depp $15 million in damages. I'm sure I'm not telling anyone anything with this knowledge. It's not a revelation on my part. I barely paid attention to the trial in the first place. I caught the beginning and maybe 5 minutes of reading in the middle somewhere, and then the end. And who would blame these celebrities now distancing themselves from Heard? I mean, nobody wants to go down with a sinking ship. But here's the thing: if you shit in your partner's bed and then get caught falsely claiming to be the victim, you need to disappear. Okay, stop showing your face on TV, close your social media accounts, just go hide in your mother's basement until the storm blows over, if it ever does. And who knows, we may just see a few more Harvey Weinsteins emerge and reinvigorate the movement. But you need to get out of the way now. Your time in the spotlight is done. Your time in Hollywood's done, that's for sure. We have to ask ourselves a question. Why is she still doing interviews? Do you know what I mean? Like, she has gotten beaten and beaten and beaten. Even Bill Cosby actually went away. Like, even Bill Cosby just stayed out of the news after all this stuff. He never, he's just like Amber Heard. He never, some of these, well, I'm going to leave that for another article. I'll get into that in a bit. But in any case, while the Depp versus Heard trial has trained the eyes of everyday viewers on the shit show we call mob rule in, I guess, the spectacle that is the news, the Me Too movement has solidified its failed attempt to be anything other than a soapbox demonstration to bash men. But if there's any good news for one demographic of the world, it's that it's taught famous people something very different. And I have several points to make about this, but this is one of the most important ones. While most of us have been watching this jaw-dropping, feces-flinging circus that has become our court system, the elites of the world are sitting jaw-dropped for a very different reason. All right, very, very different reason. We're watching one court proceeding. They are watching a very different one. And the reason for that is that basically I can almost bet that all of them are piling through all of their scrapbooks, going way deep into their phones for all the pictures of, parties and things, and, probably scrubbing most of their social media. Probably there's been a few stars that have pulled their own background checks in kind of a frenzied scramble to pluck any evidence of horrible things that they may have done to or with their past partners. Right? And they have seen what happens to they're seeing what happens to people with hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, like Johnny Depp. So they're knowing damn well at this point that can happen to them. They are rightly scared shitless. Throughout Hollywood, there's just tons of people experiencing this. I'm sure, they're looking back into their memories and thinking, have I ever had a drunken night that I don't remember? Who was there? Who might have been party to this? Because there are always people around in those parties who remember full well what exactly went down. And if ever there's a divorce or a defamation suit or maybe a custody battle, all of their ugly, apparently bed-shitting, bottle-chucking, abuse fallacies will be revealed. So if they're not thinking that right now, they damn well should be. And if this trial has proven anything outside of the fact that Amber Heard and Johnny Depp are both alcoholic scumbags, it's that the world will show absolutely no mercy, no sympathy, no quarter to famous people who lie and cheat and then claim to be the victim. In yet another movement in the continuing saga, the former couple's Hollywood friends are backpedaling in the wake of the hearings, going from their, I'll say, automatic acceptance that Heard's accusations were true of Depp and jumping on the Me Too bandwagon. That was a woke thing to do, and I think they're realizing at this point that that's probably something they don't want to be a part of.
Ms. Heard, as you know, is an actress. When she accused Mr. Depp of abuse and painted herself before the world as a representative of abuse victims everywhere, Ms. Heard took on the role of a lifetime. She can't back down. She has been living and breathing this lie for years now. And she has been preparing to give the performance of her life in this trial. But this trial is about the evidence. It's about a man's reputation. And it's about his whole life. His ability to walk down the street, look people in the eye, without having them think he's an abuser.
That was Johnny Depp's former attorney in closing statements to the jury, pointing out somewhat prophetically that Heard was giving the performance of a lifetime on the stand. And I use the word prophetic here because only just last week she appeared on an interview with MSN, or I think it was NBC's Savannah Guthrie, in a very unconvincing presentation, renewing her claims of abuse. I just, before the trial, and I'm assuming also before this interview with Savannah Guthrie, I just picture Heard standing in front of a mirror, as actors do, like they're prepping themselves, doing the whole deep breathing, centering technique to clear the mental cache of distractions and asking themselves like, okay, what's my motivation? Like Heard before the trial was probably like, okay, my motivation is to get $100 million from Johnny Depp, which is obviously the biggest movie score of acting I'll ever get. But I think the jury didn't buy her particular brand of acting on the bench throughout the trial, and as we all know, is now being forced to pay Johnny Depp $15 million, which I'm finding, I just found out last week, even after her appearances on major recent blockbusters, she does not have to give. I don't know. I mean, she sued Depp for $100 million. The number comparison there, I don't even want to go into it. In an almost equally unconvincing display of bad acting, Drew Barrymore was seen on Instagram apologizing for criticizing Depp in a former statement that she made.
Hi, it has come to my attention that I have offended people with making light of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And for that, I just want to deeply apologize and appreciate everyone who spoke out, because this can be a teachable moment for me and how I move forward and how I conduct myself. I can be a more thoughtful and better person moving forward, because all I want to do is be a good person. And I very much appreciate the depth of this. And I will grow and change from it. And I thank everyone for helping me grow along the way and teaching me. Thank you.
But she's not alone. In the midst of the trial, feminists rallied behind Heard, fomenting the statement, "Believe all women," alluding to the notion that all women should be believed regardless of any outcome in court and no matter what it does to the credibility of the men they accuse. Referencing this statement on his Ego Death World Tour, Chris Rock chanted as if joining the anti-male protesters, "Believe all women, believe all women, believe all women, except Amber Heard." That one I'm sure caught plenty of laughs. But the list of celebrities that have jumped ship from Heard's expectation of solidarity in her claims is both long and extensive, and it includes people like Ireland Baldwin, who condemned Heard as a terrible person during the recent trial, Joe Rogan, who spent a huge chunk of a recent podcast discussing how America is, quote, seeing all the crazy come out in Heard's performance, and Bill Burr, who before the trial was even over, said he hopes that people would apologize to Depp after his name was cleared. Apparently he's a big Johnny Depp fan, maybe even a friend. Other stars that chimed in on Depp's defense include Eva Green, Jennifer Aniston, Kate Moss, Howard Stern, Rob Schneider, and a whole bunch of others. But still others, like Ellen Barkin and Julia Fox, are now catching massive amounts of shit for their support of Amber Heard throughout the trial. But I suppose now they actually share Johnny Depp's intimate knowledge of what Amber Heard's shit actually smells like. Hi everyone, this is your host Kyle O'Donnell. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, you probably already know that I undergo a lot of research and spend a lot of time writing and recording and editing and uploading and sharing on social media. It's quite a bit of work. I also order background checks on perpetrators, I pay for public records requests, and of course I cover all of the expenses of keeping my media online. I do all this because I love journalism and sharing stories that are important, and if you think I'm doing a good job, why not show your support? For just $3, you can become a supporting member and get full access to all the complete ad-free episodes, early access to all the episodes that are announced at legallyinsanefilms.com. You can also gain access to all those background checks and insider case files that I use in my stories. And as a supporting member, you'll also get access to several other podcasts that I do as well. If that wasn't enough, I've also spent many, many years abroad, capturing hundreds of thousands of images and filming literally dozens and dozens of documentaries from 43 countries across 4 continents. And my supporting members have access to all of that work. To join up, head over to legallyinsanefilms.com and click Join the Fan Club. That's legallyinsanefilms.com and scroll down to Join the Fan Club. Thanks for sticking around. We'll be right back after this break. I am so glad this trial is over, so it will stop dominating the headlines. I know this is a big loss for the neo-feminist agenda, which is good, and that it's a kind of a big win for men's rights when it comes to false accusation, which is also good. But I actually lost a lot of respect for Johnny Depp during the trial. What little of it that I could stomach in the weeks that it stole America's attention away from things that actually matter in the world, I learned so much more about Depp than I ever wanted to know. Namely, for instance, I learned that Depp is a junkie, or maybe I should play it safe here and say that he's like one step above a junkie. His alleged use of cocaine and constantly being high and the couple's constant drinking, with all that being in consideration, I think the only difference between Johnny Depp and my alcoholic junkie neighbor down the street is that my neighbor gets up every morning and goes to a job. If Johnny Depp didn't have like hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, I think he would have long since run out of money keeping himself tanked on foreign substances. And I'm not even blaming Depp, really. The man's free to do what he wants in his private life, and he's clearly going to do that anyway. My greater concern, and this is really kind of what all of this boils down to, and I should say that this is what frustrates me too about this story. It's that people around the world idolize him and his lifestyle, and not just him, gangster rappers who bash women and celebrate the drug lifestyle, being unemployed and making money selling crack cocaine. I mean, these people who make millions and millions of dollars and capture the fascinations of billions of people around the world are shit bags. They're total pieces of shit you wouldn't want living next to you. You know, and this is especially in light of, like, let's put this in perspective. When there are hero scientists out there curing diseases, right? Like doctors working to find pathogens and things that are killing people and animals and like horrible numbers, and they're working to cure that. Like brilliant physicists are plotting the future habitation of Mars. Would-be leaders out there like pioneering new green sources of energy that promise to like clean up our air and our oceans. And yet here we are swooning over junkies. We give more of our attention to these two idiots who get paid to lie in front of cameras for an extraordinary amount of money. There are so many more important things that America exports, and yet we're celebrating pants off the ass hip hop culture, the millennial Justin Biebers of the world, Biggie Smalls, who literally made millions of dollars selling crack cocaine and then celebrated selling crack cocaine to babies in his rap. You know, we're celebrating them, and we're celebrating the court victories of drunk millionaires in the throes of a grudge match over people who actually do good things in the world. I think if we celebrated people making a positive change in the world rather than just people making money, we'd be experiencing a much better quality of life. You know, and this is a very true thing. As soon as we see companies like SpaceX and NASA receive attention and therefore funding, we see an exploration into other worlds and the effort of connecting with other civilizations. If you guys have been paying attention to NASA recently in the news, they're going to dedicate the next 9 months to finding other civilizations in other worlds. Like, they've never had an express interest in doing that, but they've been kept from doing that because I think early versions of woke culture shamed people who believed in UFOs as, you know, conspiracy theorists. Well, an increasing number of conspiracies are becoming pretty well true at this point. And it's taken all of that to get even companies like NASA to admit that they're interested in this type of study and things like that. And it's a shame. Like, if you think back to all the time that we could have and would have spent on efforts like this, how much further would we be in the world? Man, but unfortunately there's more attention paid to rich millionaires flinging shit at each other. We would see an effort to contain and exploit, you know, fusion energy that would solve everything from transportation impasses to energy crises. We would see a focus diverted to people working to end world hunger and create, you know, world education funding and criminalize global corruption and hold corrupt leaders to account, and on and on and on. Like, all of our problems would be solved if we paid attention to the things that made our lives better rather than just what made more money. And by the way, I realize the irony in the fact that I just got done writing an article, and now I'm recording the podcast about the very thing that I'm claiming we shouldn't be paying attention to. I get that. I'm fully aware of that. But there's more to this trial than two Hollywood elites flinging shit at each other. They represent something bigger. There's a men's rights issue here at play that's gone sorely unnoticed in the courts, and I think it's important to point these things out because women automatically get preferential treatment in court. They get custody of the kids more often. Women consistently get lighter sentences for the same crimes as men. Courts rule in their favor in the vast majority of criminal cases, and on and on and on. I've reported several times just this past week on a case where a man has openly been falsely accused of rape that's never been adjudicated, and the news has picked it up and flat out said that this man is a rapist. Check out my other articles for that. It's a mind-blowing story that people call themselves journalists and get behind stuff that hasn't been proven. And by the way, this isn't to say that there aren't plenty of men out there that need to be thrown in jail for being exactly what neo-feminists say they are. There's no shortage of scumbag abusers out there, but this doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of women out there who aren't falsely accusing men and abusing the court system to enact spite and vengeance, right? And the minute that this is the important thing about both sides of this debate, no matter where you land on that, the minute that we accept the narratives that woke virtue hounds engender and pipe into the cultural narrative, the minute we refuse that is the minute that we start waking up and just treating people as the individual cases that they are. You know, just because you're a woman doesn't mean you are one of these horrible people that I'm talking about that abuse the court system. In fact, most women aren't, just like most men aren't. And so I do what I can to not lump all women in those in those cases. And it doesn't seem to be happening across the board, especially when we're talking about woke culture. When we see a victory for Johnny Depp, who's had basically to live under this false narrative on the world stage, by the way, for several years because of his fame, and in the wake of a victory for him, it's still being hailed as a total miscarriage of justice by the woke feminists of the world. This is what it's like for men who speak out for men's advocacy, men's rights, you know, the men who dare to defend themselves against false accusations in the courts. You know, just like Heard said in the previous article, you know, look what happened to me when I spoke out. Well, that's the exact same thing that happens to men. And until we start individualizing our accusations to the actual account, rather than just saying, hey, all men are abusers and we just need to believe the women who accuse them, it's a slippery slope on both sides. It's annoying too, because like it's got a very simple, very easy solution, and that's that we just stop making broad strokes assumptions. It's an uphill battle for men to get justice in the first place, just as it is for women, right? I want to be fair, but even when a dozen jury members announced that they are unanimously finding in Depp's favor that he was the victim of abuse, both at the hands and the verbal assaults of Amber Heard, who's been enjoying the benefits of that narrative in her career, we should also realize a lot more about this trial than two rich assholes having temper tantrums. We should clue into the notion that woke ideologies are not doing anyone any good. That's it for this edition of Legally Insane News. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Kyle O'Donnell for updates and extras on this and other stories. If you're listening to this podcast at legallyinsanefilms.com or the Small Town Justice page, be sure to also download the Spreaker app, where you can directly subscribe and help me bump up my download totals. If you like this episode of Legally Insane News, consider becoming a supporting member. For just $3, you can get access to members-only unreleased articles and podcasts, case files on our latest investigations, updates for events and conventions that we're attending, and discounts on swag. To do that, just head over to patreon.com/legallyinsanefilms. There are 3 different memberships, each with more content than the one before. This is where I release all of my documentary films with outtakes and extras, as well as another podcast called Small Town Justice. You can check those out by going to legallyinsanefilms.com and clicking Join the Fan Club. Send any questions, comments, feedback, and show ideas to thejusticepod@gmail.com. This has been a production of Legally Insane Films, LLC. I'm your host, Kyle O'Donnell. We'll see you next time.